Hello, Michelle Bursar-Robley here, 4-H Field Specialist, hanging out with Rachel VanOlem today to talk about her bees. Rachel is a New Hampshire 4-H'er and an SYLT member.
Hello, my name is Rachel VanOlem. I am part of the Hillsborough County Youth Leadership Team as well as the State Youth Leadership Team. I'm a beekeeper. These are my two hives, and today I'll show you the inside of a beehive. So this is usually the electric fence. It's not on, also because snow would short it out. And it's really made to keep stuff out rather than keep the bees in. So there's bacon, as you can see, wrapped around the corners of the fence. That is because when a bear tries to put their nose or their tongue on it, they'll get shocked because bears have very thick fur, and if their fur touches it, they won't really feel it. But in a sense, it's about like their nose or tongue, they'll feel it and they won't come back. Usually keep a brick on because wind gets kind of crazy, and it also just keeps everything down. This is the inner cover. What it's made to do is to kind of have a little bit of ventilation, but not enough to chill the bees. And of course, there's a little entryway right here. And once they go through here, they can go down into the hive. This is not where a pollen patty usually is. A pollen patty would be in between these two supers. These are the brood chamber. And this is the honey area. This is what it is, what it looks like. And you just keep the plastic on it. The bees really don't care. And it's really, really gooey. This is the tool I use the most. I've got two of these. It's called a J-hook. So what you really do with the J-hook, well, this is kind of the shape of a J, really. And on the very ends of each frame, there's little ears. And put the J-hook in there and use leverage to lift it up. There's propolis, which is a sticky glue-like substance that bees make in between each frame to kind of stick it together. That's why there's a scraper right here to kind of just scrape it off so it'll be easier for next time. I started on this one. There's a little bit of honey, and you can see some sugar substance going on. The orange, brown, yellow in this little corner is pollen. Pollen can be all sorts of different colors. There's also some over here. There are, like, for instance, not all pollen looks the same. Wild blueberry pollen will look like mold in the hive. I've opened up the hive before, and apparently they got into a wild blueberry bush, and it looked like the entire hive molded. There's also, in Hillsborough, I have no clue where it is. That's the Fox State Forest, so I'm assuming it's in there. There's this red rare fern that's in New Hampshire. I don't know what it's called. I haven't seen it before, but the pollen is a blood red. One time, one of my hives got into it somewhere in the woods, and the hive looked like it was bleeding, which is a really weird thing to see. So this is some honey going on. As you can see, they kind of ate through the wax right over here. There's a little bee right there, and this, I'm pretty sure, is a capped queen cup. Either that, it could be an odd drone cell. I'm not exactly sure, because drone cells are a little larger, but a queen cell should be longer. So whatever was going on over here, I'm not sure what happened, but I do know this hive didn't have any queen issues, so it might be a really weird drone cell. And then there's some honey over here. When you're going through your hive, you want to have a record of everything you've done. So, and you want to know what frames have what on them. Like if you have a queen cell, you have multiple queen cells, you want to know where you can find it for next time. On each ear, I have numbers 1 through 10 because there are 10 frames in a super. So if something happens that I want to take note of, I can just write it down and I'll know exactly where it is for next time. about what I said earlier, these being the two brood chambers. Humans follow the rule book, bees don't. So they kind of do whatever they want. This super has a lot of honey in it, so they kind of reverse it. Here's some more honey. This one isn't completed, but it's all capped honey. And then there's it kind of sugarized on the sides. And here's the other side. As you can see on the ends of the ear, this is called the ear, that's the propolis. And usually you'd want to kind of scrape it off. It's going to be hard right now because it's been cold. I really don't want to lay a lot of frames with honey down because, as you can see, they kind of, so I can find another example. They kind of extend. With the other frames I was showing, they kind of stayed in relative, like a line from the top to the bottom, but these extend out. So if you lay it down, then it's going to get crushed. Here's the other side. And the majority of this super kind of looks like that. There's this frame. Oh, the one on the very end, I think. All right. So I made all these frames. And you can kind of see what I did. So I assembled the bottom piece, the sides, and the top. There are wires going through it to hold up a wax piece I put in the center. You can do wax or plastic. I usually do wax just because I think it's just better because they'll eat through it anyways, and it's just what I prefer. I don't think the bees really care, but this is what they kind of start out on. There's not much over here. So they start building like this, or they eat through it, whatever, onto the frame. And they'll just keep going, and it'll eventually end up like that, or a typical brood chamber. All right, so this is the bottom super. So you may be wondering why I have 3 supers on this hive. You can go way more than 3. Because we live in New Hampshire, it's going to be hard to insulate the hives throughout the winter. Usually when insulating a hive in the winter, I took it off because there's nothing living in there and I didn't really need it. What you would do is take tar paper and wrap it around, same material used for roofing, and kind of use a staple gun and staple it. There's some marks on my hives from that. And then a bee cozy, which is basically insulation for bees. You wrap it around the outside. It's really fluffy, about 1 inch thick, and it keeps everything inside. There's a little ventilation area right here. So to keep wind from going into it, usually I would take leaves, like dry leaves, and stuff it. So it's not harmful. It's not a harmful substance. It's just leaves. And they can still get in and out without being too cold. So the wind is a killer. You don't want the wind, cold wind, going through there during the winter. That's a big no-no. Also, in the summer, you don't want to squat down like this. I'm going to do it right now just because it's winter, but if you squat down like this and your knees are where I am, you open up the hive, it's level to lower half of your body so they can sting you wherever they want. It's just a good way to get stung where you don't want to be stung. In a hive that I've had around 80,000 bees per hive. Almost all of them are girls. The male bees don't do anything. Their only purpose in life is to mate. And once they do that, after mating, their intestines will come out of their body and they will die. That's their only purpose in life. And the queen only needs to mate about once every 2 years. So they're just kind of used for that. They sit around the hive, they eat, they slack around, they don't do anything. And sometimes they'll have drone like grounds or like their little area. So sometimes they won't even be in the hive. They could be anywhere in within bees usually go within a 3-mile radius. I'm going to expect the drones to be a little closer because they want to mate. So they'll be closer. They'll probably be in this area, and that's their little hangout spot. A queen that's ready to mate will either go to that spot or find a drone within the hive, mate, come back, or be in there already. And she will be all right. And she really need one drone. They don't even have stingers. They can't protect the hive. They can't do anything. But since they're so useless, what can they do in the winter? Well, winter has scarce resources. There's not a lot of warmth. It's very hard to survive, especially in New England. So all the worker bees will kick the males out, and they will essentially freeze to death. Because they'd rather have them freeze to death than to take up the resources for the actual bees that are doing something and keep the hive going. So there are no drone cells in here. They don't need any. There could be like a couple. I don't see any yet. Just because the queen is still laying eggs throughout the winter, just not as much just because of those scarce resources. In the winter, summer, sorry, she'd be laying a ton, but she does not need to in the winter. There was not another queen living in here, just that one queen. This is her old little cell. I kept an eye on it over the summer. They didn't really do anything with it. So as you can see, the queen is naturally longer than worker bees, so she's going to have a longer cell, unlike what the worker bees would live in. So when a queen is being born, really, or she's kind of growing up within that cell, she'll be in this little cell until she's ready to come out. That's where she merged. So right now, you've already been through the hive, you kind of know the vibe of what's going on. I'm going to show you a little activity you can do with your friends, your family, your 4-H club, or anyone you know to kind of simulate the experience a bee would feel traveling from flower to flower to flower. So what you need is your flowers. So what we've done, print out a picture of a flower and glue it onto a paper bag. Inside of each paper bag, there's going to be some Cheetos, and so that's going to simulate the pollen. So this little buddy, he's a little optional, or she, because the girls do all the work. She's going to go to every single flower because she's hungry and it's lunchtime. So as you can see, there's a little bit of pollen on her antennas. So she's not full yet. So she's going to go down to this flower. She's going to eat some of the flower. She's going to absorb more pollen onto her antennas, or sometimes on their legs because it's a little furry and it can capture all the pollen. And she's going to go all the way around to this flower. She's going to eat some of theirs and get more pollen. And now she's covered in tons of pollen. And when she goes back to their hive, she's going to use all this pollen to make delicious honey out of it. But what does the pollen do for each of the flowers? Well, when this little bee grabbed pollen from the first flower, nothing really went on. She just took the pollen. But when she went to the second flower, she put some pollen onto the other flower, which kind of enriches the flower because it's not just its own pollen. It's pollen from, so as you can see, they're not the same flower. It'll help it grow. It helps enrich the flower, and it keeps going on and on and on. And this is how pollination works. And this is what happens to our food sources. And actually, 1 in every 3 bites of your food comes from these little guys right here. So thank a bee and eat your vegetables. So now we're going to be making a cute little bee. So if you've never been in a beehive or are just kind of unfamiliar with the sound of a bee, you can kind of mimic the noise and simple little craft supplies you have at home. So you're gonna take a little popsicle stick and you're gonna take an eraser. You're gonna need 2 erasers and put one on each end of the popsicle stick. It's gonna look like this. And you're gonna take a piece of paper or a card like that, a 3x5, and just fold it in half. So I think it's gonna be easier to fold in half outside of the popsicle stick first. Just like this. So you're taking the long end and folding it in half. Not this way, but this way. And you're gonna take your little popsicle stick and put it through. And take your stapler to staple it in place. Just gotta make sure it doesn't fall out. Bam, just like that. So, also have your piece of string, and you're gonna tie it right around the base of either eraser. I'm gonna do this one because there's more space. And you can just do a simple knot. I'm gonna double knot to make sure it stays in place. Just like that. And we have this elastic rubber band. You're gonna wanna balance it. So there's this little flat part at the top of the eraser. You're gonna take your elastic band and put it right in the middle. And hold your finger there so it doesn't slip. And you're gonna wanna put it the other end at the bottom, just kind of stretch it. And your finished product's gonna look like this. And you can experiment doing different things. You can get a longer piece of paper if you want. You can probably get a longer popsicle stick or a thicker rubber band, a short or long string. Experiment with what you want and what you think sounds cool. And now we're gonna test it out. So you're gonna wanna probably go outside because you don't wanna knock over your mom's vases or anything like that. And a nice open space, clear, with no people around for your fly zone. You don't wanna hit anybody. And you're just gonna take it and spin it. So this is kind of what a bee sounds like. And again, I'm Rachel VanOlem, and thank you for watching. And a big, huge thank you for the New Hampshire beekeepers. And for more information about projects you can find out more about on the 4-H website or Ag in the Classroom.